Fuck it, we'll do it live. I use that joke way too often. All right. We'll be back right after this little song. All right, we're here with Seth from the Dividend Report, whose channel on Chirp is hashtag Daily Dividends. I was super stoked to re-find that thing today, and we've got a bunch of updates. We haven't done a Chirpcast in a little while. We now have follower counts. If you own a channel on Chirp, you should be able to see that going on. You can actually see how many coins you've earned because, of course, anytime somebody posts inside your channel, you make 2 coins. You can see that. There's just been a bunch of updates. The dev's been super busy. But Seth, how the hell are you doing? I know we're going to talk some crypto today, and I'm stoked about it because it's crazy.
Dude, Corey, thank you for having me on. I'm doing as well as one can do in a global pandemic, as I always say.
Exactly right. Whee! Everything sucks.
And I am on Chirp now. Thank you for kind of inviting me to the platform and everything. How's Chirp been going since the last time we spoke? Is there big stuff in the works?
There's huge stuff in the works. I could probably talk about this. So basically, the thing that we've been working on the most, and we've been doing, just basic sort of fixing stuff, right? Because of course you launch and some features we need and some things we need to smooth out and posts need to kind of unfurl and like links need to show previews properly. Like we've been doing stuff like that to make it kind of just visually effective, right? But the thing that the devs are spending the most time on right now is a partnership that we just signed with Telos, which is a blockchain based on EOS, where we're going to be demoing a technology where inside the Telos channel in Chirp, every single post, comment, and like is going to give you a tiny little bit of the Telos token. So not only are you going to be earning coins in the sort of normal ecosystem that we've got going on the site, but every single little thing that you do in their channel is going to be giving you little micro payments. So basically, you're getting attention times 2. And the vision is, when that works, and we're quite certain that it will. There are thousands of tokenized projects out there. And every single one of them would absolutely love to have a super streamlined social media platform where they could basically trade and distribute their tokens for attention and community and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's huge, and I think that actually might tie into the larger question that we have to talk about today as well, because it all ties in. So that we're going to be demoing that in the next little bit. And then there's going to be an earn button on Chirp. So again, like the coins that we, sort of the coin of the realm that, that runs the whole platform, still going to work the way that it always has. But there could be dozens of ways to just be doing your normal social media, activity and earning tokens from potentially dozens of different high profile crypto projects in the near future.
Man, that's wild. One of the coolest and weirdest concepts of tokenized like social media. Like I'm subscribed to the cryptocurrency subreddit, and I get a notification, and they're like, "Hey, the monthly distribution of moons is out. Like every month they go out, and like based on the karma that you accrue in the subreddit, you get a certain amount of moons, they call it. And so I got 25 moons, and I'm like, well, this is awesome. Like, this is really freaking cool. And I ask a question, and this dude with 408,000 moons, and like I do the math right because they're selling for US dollars, like half a cent each, right? The dude's got like $2,000 worth of moons just sitting there, and he's commenting and everything. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, I'm like just seeing this whale float by. I'm in this ecosystem of crypto, and I love it. But it also raises this question of like, isn't one of the biggest rules of crypto is like, don't let people know what you're holding, right?
I wouldn't say that necessarily. I mean, like there is a security element to if you're concerned about that, you'd have what's called a cold wallet and a hot wallet, right? So whatever you want to have secured, you put in a cold wallet or secure wallet or an offline wallet, that kind of thing, or hardware even. And then your hot wallet is just your running around money. With something like Moons, it might be worth even more as a status symbol than it is as worth a $2,000 worth of that kind of thing. And the other thing that you'll notice, and I think this ties into the uni thing as well, for whales, and I don't really know too much about the Moonies thing, but this is definitely true for smaller projects like Vigor, for example, which is a DeFi thing that just launched on the EOS blockchain. If a whale comes in and sells a bunch to move it into a more liquid currency, it has a massive effect on the price, right? So I think that's where people are sometimes they're not going to kind of worry about it too much, just because and well, they might have their shit tight anyway. Like it could be entirely secure, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and outside of that too, I think there's just a really interesting concept, right? I mean, in society as it exists today, people who have wealth have status, and just having that number next to your name assumes some amount of status. And like, there are different types of people when it comes to wealth, but some people love giving. They just love philanthropy. They love just kind of swinging around their bag. And that dude was just leaving awards on my comments. He was like, "Here, I just gave you some moons." He's tossing it left and right. And it was just a naturally like, it's being nudged gently along by the fact that there's a financial incentive to being, someone who's not toxic in this community. But it was really, really weird. That's one of the things that kind of brought my attention back to this space after our talk. And then I'm learning about like, okay, what is Moons? It's an ERC20 token, and it's going to go on to the Ethereum mainnet at some point in the future. So then I'm really trying to learn about Ethereum, because I stopped short at the blockchain, the ledger, the decentralized ledger and Bitcoin and everything, and I turned all of my attention over to Andrew Yang. And here I am learning about the decentralized finance world, and learning about interoperability, and all of these questions are popping up, and I'm like, well, I know someone who knows a thing or two about crypto. But before I go there, I ran a poll on my Twitter, just kind of asking my community, hey, I think I'm going to talk about crypto a little bit more often. How many of you would say you have like a proficient knowledge of this technology? And surprise, surprise, like there are many people who have no idea what Bitcoin is. The most popular answer was Bitcoin is digital money, which, like that's what you would expect from people who are just looking at it at the surface. Why do you think people because adoption is so important, right? Why has the cryptocurrency community failed so hard at getting people interested in this?
I would say that it hasn't. It's just time, right? If you look at the adoption rate for the internet in the beginning, we're the cryptocurrency / blockchain space is, I think, still outpacing that pretty dramatically, right? Now, that doesn't mean we can't do much better, and that partially is the mission of Chirp, right? Like we're creating a social media platform. And there's tons of discussion about the fact that people want an alternative to that anyway. But then we want to have this situation where people can just come and do their normal social media and be in a position to be exposed to multiple different kinds of cryptocurrency just in the activity that they're going to be doing in kind of their everyday life, which is kind of fun. We just had a comment on here. Other tokens are going to be enabled on Chirp ? Yes. So the vision is for every project out there that is tokenized, they're going to have a channel, and they'll be able to distribute that token just by regular activity that goes on the channel. Anybody that has seen a dust mine on Telegram will know exactly what this is like. That's something that Kurt started playing with Dust, the cryptocurrency that he invented, really just as a currency for the Nifty Wizards kind of universe. And every comment that you do in their Telegram channels, 100 Telegram channels now, will net you one Dust token. And so that's just been cranking along like crazy. And we're going to turn Chirp into sort of a multilateral version of that. That's going to have like any tokenized project that wants to come in and do that. We'll be able to show them how to do it, which is pretty nuts.
We're going to come back to a discussion on NFTs after I've done my due diligence, because well, have you been do you listen to the Bankless podcast?
I have not, no.
they just did an episode, and like both of them seem very well informed on crypto overall, and they were like, we've been pretty we've dropped the ball when it comes to NFTs. And then like the meme token came along just in the past month or something and just exploded, and they had to get the guy who was kind of running the show over there, get him on for a talk. And they're saying, the NFT ecosystem in general is something to look at, and something to look at widely. And that's something that you're involved in, right? I think I saw that you had a song that you released, produced, and sent out there as an NFT. Is that correct?
So that's actually still in the works. I partnered with the guy who released the first MP3 NFT, MBlue. Did that a few weeks ago. And on November 7th, we're releasing the second one, and it's my reimagination of his initial tune. So yeah.
For the sake of my community, because like I said, a lot of the stuff that we are saying here, just throwing around these terms left and right, it's a big turnoff to people. And I've asked my followers, like, hey, try and stick with me. I'm going to see how well I can bring this to a mainstream audience. So an NFT is a non-fungible token. Yep. And when the last time we spoke, we kind of got into this discussion of gamification of these systems and social media and everything. And you mentioned in passing, like, yeah, you can totally tokenize a song and have like the property rights of the song. And it didn't hit me. I was just kind of like let it pass by me. So what does it look like to have a song, to make it and then have it as a token, right? Because anyone could just take the wavelength of the song, right, and listen to it.
Well, and it's like people are talking about screen grabbing, pictures that are NFTs or art that's on it, because that's a huge part of it. And the best description that I've seen for that, because it was actually a Bitcoin maximalist that was making this argument, like, oh, you could just, screen grab anything. NFTs are dumb, yada, yada, yada. And somebody commented, yeah, I actually just made a ledger and then wrote myself 1 million Bitcoin on the ledger on my computer, and now I have 1 million Bitcoin. No, you fucking don't. Right. So it is interesting in the sense that you can, there are all sorts of ways to scam the system by spoofing it, right? So if you have, I started a Shipple meme thing, right? So you can, and I think I have a few of them out for like 1 wax, which is like a quarter of a fucking cent or some stupid thing, right? Just to start playing around with the idea. But that it's me because it's my account, right? And so it tracks back to a very specific owner. And then places like Atomic Hub, for example, are going to whitelist the actual people that are running the accounts, right? So there's that layer of authenticity. There's already people that are just, going after, they're basically copycatting different things and selling some things, and some people are buying that without paying too much attention or whatever. So that's an issue, right? But that those kinds of things are getting dealt with. But it's for an artist like me, and I interviewed Kevin Winger, who is releasing his art now as visual NFTs. It is a whole other vector to create scarce collectible items, and then it allows you to do things. I think that's fine. Like other people are like, oh my god, these things are kind of worthless, they're just images. I completely disagree. I think it's really, really interesting, and a huge sector of the NFT market agrees with me. But the second layer thing, which is what Kurt is just obsessed with, rightly, is that this now allows you to do things in applications that basically empowers people who own these particular things to do. As an example, I could say, a year from now, anybody who owns the music NFT that I had, that could act as a ticket to get into a gig, right? Or that could act as a list that I airdrop something cool and new to, right?
Okay.
So right, so like it allows us to start to overlaying intelligence on top of ownable things. Kevin Winger, as another example, is for one particular line of NFTs that he has, you can actually burn it, destroy it, and it will automatically mail you the paper version of like a print, but still like the paper version of this piece of artwork that he has. So we're just seeing, like, again, this is the Atari level version of this, but it's effectively, you can track the direct ownership of this scarce digital thing back to its source, which is going to be huge.
That's wild. So, I mean, I was ready just to stop at, the status idea, right? That dude who had 400,000 tokens, I'm watching this whale go by, it incurs this sense of status. Like, the Genesis CryptoKitty exists, I can take an image of that CryptoKitty and say, hey, look, I've got Genesis, but
Right.
I don't actually have
Doesn't
Genesis.
mean anything. Right. Exactly.
Like, what happens when that owner has a Twitter account and you go to their Twitter page and boom, he's like, this is Genesis. I have it. I am the owner of it, right? That status is going to kind of evolve outward. So that's huge one. But what you're talking about, and like, there's utility behind these NFTs to go further. Like,
Mhm.
wasn't there a project like Crypto Dragons that you could feed crypto kitties to the dragons? Like, you would burn a
I didn't
crypto.
even see that. That's awesome.
That's something that I heard Vitalik, excuse me, speaking about in a interview he did with Lex Friedman, and he was like, so like it keeps on building on top of everything else. Like, hey, yeah, my
Right.
dragon's gonna eat this cryptocurrency, and then you've got the dragon like attributes and everything, or like when he takes a dump and the crypto kitty, like is discarded. All of these new systems are then built, right? The possibilities are endless in that regard. That's
Yes.
insane. That is
Yep.
really, really cool. Wow.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that's going to be happening in Nifty Wizards, as an example, is you're going to be able to take, like I am now, I can actually mint, or like I basically have my own brewery, right? So I can mint beer NFTs. So anybody who shares this and tags me, make sure you have a Wax account, and I'll send you an NFT of beer from Nifty Wizards, right? But there's weed too. So there's talk about making weed infused beer by creating a system that would allow you to burn 2 NFTs and receive a weed infused beer. It's like going into like a role playing game or whatever, right? Where you can go in and like mix different things, and they basically get destroyed in the process, and you have like a new set of armor or whatever. And that, yeah, you can just times that by anything. It's
So
gonna be weird.
like you could technically do like what I'm just trying to throw out an idea. You could
Mhm.
be character commissions. I'm going to create an art portfolio of the character, your nifty wizard, whoever you are. Because like I've gotten through the beginning, I've got my initial stuff. It's so time consuming. Like trying to
It's
fill
weird.
my head with everything. It's taking me a while to get there, but I am getting there. So then you build like an art community within the Nifty Wizards ecosystem by creating character commissions for people and trading them for certain non-fungible tokens within the system. Does that sound right?
That there are people that are doing things like that. Kurt has left it as open as humanly possible, because he basically just wants to set the initial boundary conditions and tools for people to then go and do whatever they want to do with them. So there is somebody who even wants to make a tavern that's kind of in line with that. And yeah, I want to turn. I'm going to be making a channel. I'm just going to like say it. I'm not even sure if I'm going to get approved to do this. Most things still kind of run through the council, but I want to have a Nifty Wizards tavern on Chirp, where everything that you do obviously is a dust mine. That's the kind of coin of the realm or whatever. But where you randomly get dropped beer NFTs throughout the course of the day if you're actually in there building the community. And this I think goes back to the Uniswap thing.
Right.
And this is what I've been astounded with. Just to give people a bit of a backdrop, there's something called DeFi, decentralized finance, that is taking the cryptocurrency world by storm right now. It's completely bananas. It basically is doing with blockchain contracts, smart contracts, what banks do, right? Like to evaporate the entire function of a bank and building and employees and everything, and just render it down to these pieces of software that literally anyone can use at will. And the tokens that are behind these things have gone completely insane. They have mooned. They're gone up, sometimes 100x or 1000x or whatever. And the exchange that has the most volume is called Uniswap, and they airdropped to anyone who had ever used Uniswap ever, right, to any account, a share of what's called their governance token. And what that just means is they mint a token on Ethereum, if I'm not mistaken, which means it's an ERC20 token. And they just want to say, okay, if you own any of these tokens, you can vote in the whole process of how they want this system to move forward. But it has value, right? It's tradable on an open exchange, and Uniswap for that matter. So they airdrop everybody who's ever used it a share of this stuff, and it ended up being like $1,100 worth of cryptocurrency on day one.
Well, it was initially I think they designed it to be $1,200. Like it was a tongue in cheek reference to the stimulus checks that
Oh,
went out. But then of course that drove so much interest within the uni token that people start pouring their money into it. That $1,200 turned into $3,800 like overnight. It was
mhm.
crazy. And then of course it sank back down. So it's this
Yep.
very volatile system that's going on right now. And some people are trying to liken it to the ICO craze that happened in 2017, but I do feel that there are some pretty significant differences between what we're seeing from then to now, right? So
Yeah.
the best way
Well,
that
yeah.
the way that I
Yeah.
was trying to explain this to my followers is like, imagine that you've got, you're buying a house, you have to deal with the loan officers, you have to deal with the real estate. There's so many contracts, and then at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, you get it taken care of in court.
Mhm.
But compare that with you having a transaction with a vending machine. You put your dollar in, the vending machine's going to give you the change, and you don't have to take that vending machine to court because it's a machine. The financial transaction happens based on the mathematical calculations, what goes in, what goes out, input, output. That's it. And that's essentially what the smart contracts are doing with decentralized finance, is that they're getting into, they're like, so this is just the weirdest thing, and it's something that I'm so mad because people saw this, right? When people were talking about Ethereum 5 years ago, this was something that they were making some space for, and I learned about smart contracts, but I didn't go any further than that. And now here we are. They're starting to take like things you would only see in centralized financing, like putting up assets for collateral and the use of a loan or something. All of that is happening within this decentralized ecosystem, which is what Uniswap is.
Uh-huh.
So that's the way that I was trying to, and so like what you're seeing now here too is I went and learned about Good Dollar. Have you spent any time learning about Good Dollar?
No.
Good Dollar is a UBI protocol based on the Ethereum blockchain, and it's using the decentralized financed ecosystem for people to be able to use their cryptocurrency tokens, put it up as that they would stake it on the Good Dollar protocol, I suppose,
Mhm.
which generates interest. It gives the Good Dollar like value because they're staking it to it. They get interest back. So they call it a do well by doing good system. It gives a little bit of value to the Good Dollar, which is then distributed. It's not much, right? But they're focusing on the unbanked in like, for, third world countries like Africa, where they don't have access to banks, they don't have access to any types of this. They would be able to take their Good Dollars and trade it with each other for the goods and services that they're doing in their small villages, right? And then the people who are staking the capital back in the United States are gaining interest off of the decentralized financial workings of that entire interaction. And it blew my mind wide open. I was like, this makes perfect sense, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna try and see if I can get someone to get onto my show from that organization. It's run by, from what I can tell, a very reputable organization. Scott Santens has said that he's on board with what they're doing and everything too. So that's kind of my litmus test there. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'd love to talk to him after you do when you land them, because I think that's really, really interesting. Yeah. So it the problem with, because I've seen people just say, why don't we just mint a token and just have it out there and give everybody a bunch of it, and then it all works, right?
right,
That doesn't work, because the second you do that, everyone sells it into $1 and the price of it goes down to nothing.
right,
Right. That Uniswap thing is really freaking interesting because that didn't happen. Right. Like they basically invented a thing out of whole cloth, which is what happens when you're making a token. Right. And I mean, all currency at base is just an idea, kind of going back to that whole thing. But watching what happened there, it was like $1 billion market cap right off the bat. It's ridiculous. And the reason that happened the way it happened, like unpacking that, gives us some really, really interesting opportunities for looking at how we want to organize ourselves in the future. And this might be slightly distant future, I don't know. But the idea space around this is so hot right now that some really, really interesting things are happening. Suddenly everybody had a stimulus check from nowhere. What the hell? That doesn't make any sense, except that it happened. And it happened because somebody minted a token and said, yeah, if it was tongue in cheek, that's even more hilarious. We're going to call this $1,200. Like, that's the opening bid. right?
Right.
And wherever the price goes, once it gets onto to the system, that's where the price goes. But everybody thought it was such an amazing idea that people started actually stacking up on it. Again, Uniswap is really, really successful. So, for all they know, like, it really could be worth 10 times that much, in 10 years or something, like, right? Like, we don't know, right? So it causes that speculation demand, and demand side for this stuff that's all the marbles. If you have a community, right? So like, say 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people, that's step one. Because if you just like give a token out to one person, you literally have created nothing. Like, it literally is pointless, right?
Right.
But if you have a huge number of people that all have it, now you have that number of people that are going to have the option to buy or sell, which creates potential for a market, which is huge. And then you have just somebody comes in and drops a price, and then it's up to the individual to agree with that price or not agree, right? Which is where we're going to see in any naturalized market: is the price going to go up or is the price going to go down? And Uniswap is so hot, the price actually went up, which is crazy. But it went up a bunch, and then people were like, I'm sitting on $3,800 or whatever it is. And then just normal people or people that really desperately need it, in the case now, it's 2020, there's a pandemic, everything is fucked up. They start selling it, and so that balance has to be achieved somewhere. But at the end of the day, it achieved some actual real world economic value for a pretty good size chunk of people. And so, unpacking how that worked and why it worked, I think is critical for anyone who wants to start some kind of functional UBI in the cryptocurrency space. When Seth, when you first asked me about it, I was like, it's not going to work, because there's no buy side, right? There's no demand side, which is why I was worried about it. How do you just do that for everybody, right?
Right.
Because like, it's one thing for launching that to the Uniswap community, specifically people who have used it, right? So they already know about this thing. They know that it is successful. They know that its throughput is I think more than Coinbase right now, which is completely mental, right? So they're predisposed community to already value this governance token.
Yeah, yeah. And like, when I advocate for universal basic income, one of the first things that I have to try and remind people who I'm communicating with is that I'm part of the fundamental problem that I find in our current state of society is that no one does not have any, like, no one's valueless. Economic value and human value are two separate stages when they shouldn't be, especially in an age where we have Silicon Valley making trillions of dollars mostly off of the ad revenue garnered from our attention, right? So at the very least, we provide value even in ways that may be minuscule. So then we go over to what happened with Uniswap, and I realized that they accept and trade BAT, what is it, basic attention token from the Brave browser. Yep. I've got BAT, right? I signed up for it when someone asked me to, like a year ago when I was just starting my channel. I can see that I have BAT that I could have traded onto Uniswap, right? Which is then providing the value that I gave, or that I got from my ad-based revenue, put it up on stake into a much broader ecosystem. I would have gotten $1,200 just for trading some of my BAT on Uniswap, which is basically a recreation of the type of system that I see happening, or that I envision happening if we lived in a just insane society. So it blew my mind wide open, and it is a super volatile market right now. Like, I'm not saying that it's going to happen anytime soon, but at the end of the day, one of the things that I argue is that a universal basic income just makes sense for an economic system. And if it works, it's going to emerge in a decentralized format in one way or another. I feel like it feels that it could happen. I'm not going to say 100%, but I think you could see the origination of a universal basic income through a decentralized ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, it would have so many amazing and more versatile uses than just running it off the dollar. But at the end of the day, like, we could see, China's already working on a digital yuan. There's a few other countries that are doing it. It wouldn't surprise me if the US tried to do the same thing, especially, again, like, cryptocurrency is tiny right now, right? Like, it's you take the entire market cap of cryptocurrency, it's like less than Apple, as a whole. So, and I don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but this decentralized finance thing, it won't be long before it will be a massive competitive advantage to both put your money into one of these smart contracts and also get your house loan from one of these contracts. So for anyone that understands how this works now, the banks that are offering house loans, they go to the Federal Reserve, who just print money out of nothing, right? They just invent it out of nothing, and they get charged 0.25% interest on that, and then they charge you 5% interest on that, on money they never owned and did nothing for, right? So imagine being able to go to a reputable DeFi outfit that has $2 billion worth of liquid assets and controls and right, and its smart contract automatically understands your capacity to repay debt in a useful way, and I, as a human being, am lending into this pool because I'm getting stuff back from it. I'm the one who's getting the interest. Seth is you're getting the interest on this in the same way that people that are doing DeFi now are making, really steady interest in it. So I'm putting my capital in there, and between 10,000 of us, we lend you the money to get your house, and you pay it back, and the interest goes back into the pool, and everything is insured, and yada yada yada. Right? So they're figuring this out right now, and these things have been starting in the last kind of couple of years, maybe a little bit more for some of them, but they're gaining a level of maturity now, and they're going to be all over the place. So at what point is that ubiquitous, and the normal banks are just dead? I think it's probably 10 years max.
Right, because it's more effective and it's more efficient. That interest going back into the pool, the lack of a centralized middleman, the real parasite in society may actually be the centralized banking system. And
it was essential. Right.
Right.
There was no other way to do it before. And it really has sort of fallen into being the most efficient way to do something. But now we're all sitting here we could just do this with the internet and a smart contract that's super basic. And because you're right, they have been shaving off the top and creating economic maladies, through greed or whatever, right? It's been the most efficient system that we could do. And now it's not even close.
100%. Just from the money that you save, taking out those inefficiencies, you could fund a universal basic income. In my opinion,
Yeah, I think you could. As another example, my wife's got a couple $100,000 worth of student loans. She's very smart and doing a bunch of stuff, right? So we pay basically $1,000 a month for her student loans, and in the last 10 years since she left school, her student loans have gone from about 180,000 to 220,000.
Yeah, it's designed to extract wealth
on money they never did anything for.
Yeah,
right. The company that extended those loans out, that money was just invented like a house loan money amount of capital out of thin air. And it's basically it's wage slavery is all it is. It's basically you're going to be owned and giving resources back to this central authority for the boon of giving you an education.
Yeah, and you can't bankrupt out of it. What is that?
Right. Yeah.
What is that?
It's aristocracy is what it is. If you haven't seen Capital on Netflix yet, go and watch it. It's based on the book Capital by Thomas Piketty. And yeah, the aristocracy and the oligarchy stuff that we talk about all the time, that income inequality is far more rampant than what people generally understand. And because of compound interest, they have escape velocity. It'll be that way forever unless we dramatically change how we do taxation in this country and in the rest of the Western world.
And it seems would you be of the same opinion to me that this is unstoppable? Because cryptocurrency is going to become a thing. I know that there were some big issues right around the time of the ICO craze. Any single time regulators have gotten into their feet into the pool, it's not turned out well for the overall adoption of cryptocurrency as a legitimate financial institution. But, other countries, like you said, China coming out with their own, very likely, South Korea in Jeju Island.
Control, right? That. If you run that blockchain, it's not decentralized. Their digital currency is not going to be decentralized. It's going to be entirely run from the Central Bank of China.
True.
Right? It's going to be able to interact with these other. It'll have interoperability and exposure to these other blockchains, which I think is really, really interesting. But they'll be able to track all of that as well, right? So that, and that's where if they do something with the dollar, it'll be exactly the same way. But at the same time, people worried about being tracked or whatever, the era of considering yourself to have any privacy whatsoever, it's just over. It's completely over. And so we might as well just get all the benefits from it.
Yeah. Well, there is that. They'll be able to track when you go in and out of the centralized cryptocurrency system.
Yes, and to where and how much, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, those systems will just naturally atrophy because all of the interesting stuff is going to naturally, like if you've got more control over how you make money, how you stake money on a decentralized economy that just works well, the only reason that you're taking that money back out to put into a centralized currency is so you can pay your rent, to pay bills, right?
Right, and at what point is rent payable in Vigor, as an example?
And even if it's not, if you're just dealing with a negligible, fee to transfer the currency. So here's a bigger question that I wanted to kind of get cleared up. Wrapped Bitcoin. That's what I'm trying to understand, and I'm having the hardest time understanding.
Okay, have you been following the Proton wallet?
No.
Okay. I'll send you some links. A buddy of mine, Fred Kruger, was part of. They built Links Chain, which was an EOS side chain, right? That was actually where the initial beta of Chirp happened. And so we know these guys pretty well. They basically shut Links down so that they could build Proton with another big cryptocurrency company called Metal Pays Me. They've always been super focused on wallets that just work, and that's actually the only reason why Shipple took off. My goofy little cryptocurrency is because there was a wallet that even my mom could figure out, and we got it on there, which was really good. So Proton is basically doing these thing called wrapped Bitcoin. So right now, if you want to send Ethereum is a bit of a better example right now, but Bitcoin's not too far behind. So if you want to send Ethereum right now, it costs money per transaction. It's called a gas fee, right? And it's slowing everything down. Like the second that you have one good, useful app that is getting attention on Ethereum, like CryptoKitties or Uniswap or whatever, it shuts the whole thing down because people are trying to buy like a $4 NFT and it costs $79 to do a transaction. It's completely unusable. So what these different chains are doing, like Proton as an example, is you can basically turn your Ethereum into wrapped Ethereum, which will take your Ethereum, you'll send that Ethereum to their smart contract, and it will create I think they're calling it like PETH, or basically like Proton wrapped Ethereum, which means that your Ethereum now lives on the Proton blockchain, right? So it's in there. The actual Ethereum itself is in the smart contract, locked in there, right? And you can now transact that Ethereum, that wrapped Ethereum, to anyone else that's on, has access to this blockchain or this wallet, and it costs nothing. You can do as many transactions as you possibly want, and say I could send you that Ethereum for literally zero anything, right? No gas fees whatsoever, and then you could unwrap it and you would have it.
Okay, that is a hard concept for me to digest because you use wrapped Ethereum, you spend such and such wrapped Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, no, I guess that does make sense. I mean, this is just so crazy of an idea. Okay, like Wax.io or the Wax wallet, which Nifty Wizards is running off of, is a completely different blockchain than Ethereum.
Yep.
But I'm assuming that it's on Wax because of the same problem you just mentioned with how crypto can...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but theoretically, it shouldn't really matter to anyone who's looking at these because it's not a competition of who's going to win out the biggest market share, because these systems will be able to communicate. This is the interoperability that we kind of gently brushed on earlier. It doesn't really matter because you can wrap things and send them from chain to chain if there's...
Yeah, but you know how long wrapped stuff has been around?
What?
Months.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's very new.
It's very new, right? So the biggest problem with ETH, and if you look at Vitalik interviews, they've been talking about sharding and ETH 2.0 for since 2015, because they realized after CryptoKitties took their entire ecosystem and shut it off because people were so interested in it, which is absolutely unendingly hilarious. So they tried to figure out how to make it more efficient, and they have not done it. It still doesn't work.
They're still saying 3 years down the road.
It's ridiculous, right? And so, EOS the EOS blockchain kind of had the same problem, where one project on it started taking up all of the network resources at a hilariously intense pace, right, and basically shut the whole thing down. Now, instead of talking about it for a long time, because of the way the EOS.io system works, like the actual contract that makes the blockchain, Lynx could just copy it. It's open source, and make their own blockchain and have instantaneous interoperability because it's all kind of on the same smart contract, right? Whereas Protein is Proton, sorry, Protein is the same kind of variation. Wax is actually built on that same variation, so that interoperability with the EOS blockchain is already baked in, and they can just all start doing stuff. So the demand was created for these blockchains that for the user, they don't see any of the fees or any of the nonsense, and it can just work, which is what we're going to see for a long time. So people that are like putting all their money into Ethereum right now, I think Ethereum and Bitcoin, quite frankly, and I get shit for this, but I am going to end up being right. They're DOS. They're already finished. They were perfect proofs of concept for the technology that was available at the time, and they're going to go away because there's already things out there that are much, much better.
I'm still behind the curve because I went from Bitcoin to Ethereum, finally understanding Ethereum in the year 2020.
It's a lot, though, dude. Ethereum's crazy. It's crazy, and as a proof of concept, I mean, they created one thing where like, hey, you can make a version of Ethereum called an ERC20 token, and then just do whatever you want with it. And here's all the exchanges. And the ICO craze went from like $10 to like what 100, 200, 300 billion in a year. It's crazy. It's crazy. And as a proof of concept, it will have changed the world.
And what makes me even a little more frustrated is that if it were not for those like systemic issues in the Ethereum blockchain itself, cryptocurrencies would have been the beginning of the world change. Like that's the craziest thing. If it didn't slow down the network with the gas fees and everything, that is the exact kind of adoption that starts a snowball effect, in my opinion, where just seeing the way that World of Warcraft and how Steve Bannon got his start off of selling World of Warcraft gold, and that was the way that he entered into the world through obtaining his wealth through a virtual currency. It's the weirdest and craziest thing. That times 10 times 20 is exactly the type of thing that starts to generate adoption in the real world. So I'm frustrated that it didn't happen there, but you see it happening with the recent developments happening on interoperability is what I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, and when you start seeing the things like wrapped things and people are creating whole segments where the DeFi world can start to interact together, that to me is a super interesting theme because like these various walled gardens of different blockchains are like seeing early internet, where like just your neighborhood or just your town had internet. That's not interesting, right? You need to have a network of networks effect, and that's starting to happen at pace. For anyone out there, like my favorite example of that, because I know them and I know what's coming in their ecosystems, is Proton. But there are others. Like Telos is another really interesting example of just another blockchain that is very, very democratic at its core, and they're just planning on being extremely usable for the community that's running it.
Man, that's awesome. I've got one last thing that I just kind of want to see if I understand. It's DAI, which is like tacked to the US dollar, but it's not like Tether in the sense that it's decentralized. It's a decentralized algorithm that tries to make it a stable coin, which essentially means that it works like the US dollar.
Yeah.
So a lot of people look at Bitcoin as a purely speculative, or cryptocurrency in general, purely as a speculative market. Like how much is this currency worth versus that? But from what I understand of DAI, you can take your cryptocurrency tokens, put it into DAI, and not have to worry about the volatility of a market over time, and then send it back.
Yeah, so there's a few of those, and I know like a lot of DeFi is kind of like that, right? And I don't know too much about DAI specifically, but there's definitely some a few projects that are basically allowing you to put your tokens into a stablecoin type contract, and even giving you exposure to when that when there's too much of it or when there's too little of it. It will actually expand, but instead of changing the price of that thing, it actually just starts to airdrop you more of the token, which is kind of interesting as well. That is an area that I haven't looked into as much, but yeah, stable coins, they've been out since Tether, and and a lot of people have been sort of kind of angry at Tether because like, oh, you're just printing stuff, and I'm like, why would anyone give a shit about that now?
Yeah.
But I get it. So there's a decentralized version of it. There's smarter ways to do all this stuff, and we'll see probably dozens. Like I predicted back in 2016 that there would be at least 5 or 6 different versions of Tether, because again, there's no barrier of entry. Like as long as you can create a market for it, and people trust your system to do what you say it's going to do, then you're going to get market share from it.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna spend a lot more time here looking at NFTs, looking at all these things. The next time we talk, we're gonna get really, I think, hopefully into some more of that aspect. I think gamification is like I said, crypto kitties. I saw as something massive when I started actually learning about it. So I think, and it sounds like you are ahead of the curve. I really do think you should check out the Bankless podcast. They are very.
Yeah, no, I pulled it up already because that sounds really interesting.
Their last State of the Nation, I think they call it. This is when they kind of go in. They have a very long conversation about the Uni airdrop, and one of the guys, like he says something like, "I don't view this as like a left or a right thing when it comes to wealth redistribution." He says, "I think it's just a evolution of financial systems." I was like, I wonder who he supported for in the primary season of this election cycle. It was very clear that they are UBI oriented, and they also had Vitalik on their podcast. That's the only reason why I took them seriously, is they had a super good conversation with him. But yeah, I'm going to be taking a look at all these things, and I hope to come back to you to because my channel, the Dividend Report, it's just a little too perfect, I think. I'm just going to really quickly check my chat. I want to see if any of my followers have any questions for you.
All right. Yeah, especially the Dividend Report when it comes down to like getting into the DeFi kind of space. I mean, oh my god, I would check out Vigor.ai or app.vigor.ai because they're actually doing some really, really amazing things. They actually just went live a few days ago. I've talked to the team. They're super awesome. It's a really, really good kind of introductory way to get into looking into the DeFi space. I want to interview them more because like I barely even understand it now, and I've been messing around with it for a little while. So that's kind of fun. But I want you to imagine this. So you've got the hashtag daily dividends on Chirp. In the not too distant future, I think it's going to be possible for you to be doing 3 different things with it simultaneously. So when people post and at you on Twitter, they get nothing, right? So imagine telling them, okay, you can come to my daily dividends channel. You can post, you can comment, you can like stuff, you can have fun, whatever. Every action that you do will get you a little bit of Shipple, a little bit of Dust token, which is actually on an open market now. So it's like that. There's actually a market for it, so it's potentially transferable. Not big yet, but it's out there. And randomly, once a day, I'm going to drop a daily dividend NFT to one person who is part of the active community in this channel, right? And you could go out to other projects out there. Say you interview somebody in the DeFi community or DAI or whatever, and say, hey, listen, if you give me a budget of tokens, then we'll add this on there and it will distribute it to my community for the amount of attention and community that they bring to that stuff. That's the kind of thing that we're starting to play around with, so that it's not just coins. It's every project that wants your attention, that needs distribution. Like Uni, they need distribution, and they need to have that community backed and that attention backed and that kind of proof of work backed kind of situation. And Chirp's going to be able to do that for any token that wants to play ball.
That's really, really cool. That makes me very excited. Now, how much control would I have over the creation of like NFTs for my channel?
I will show you how to create NFTs on Atomic Hub right after we get off this, and it will take 5 minutes.
Okay. So
you should play with that anyway. It's super fun.
Yeah, no, I need to spend some time really digging down into this aspect. That sounds awesome. That sounds extremely cool. And I'm going to check out those things you mentioned as well. Do you have like some core crypto discussion sources or material that you kind of go to? Right now, Bankless is the podcast that I'm listening to try and expand my knowledge on this field in general.
I have been so neck deep in Chirp that I haven't really been doing that. I will. I'll collect some things and and try and get some more resources on that, and some more interviews if you want them. Because like again, like I am sort of a fairly strong novice in this space, but I know people that are titans. And so, I'd be glad to have them come in if you have like specific topics. I can see if I can line to some stuff. One of the people I'm going to be interviewing soon is Justin, who's one of the head guys over at the Telos blockchain, who would be a great conversation for you, as well as Jimmy D from Vigor. Like, yeah, he's into a bunch of different things. You can check out my interview with Jimmy D on Chirpcast. Was extremely wide ranging. Yeah,
Yeah.
There's a bunch.
I'm gonna definitely be following your channel more than I have up to this point because I'm full. I'm like head deep within this right now. I think it's gonna be huge, and it's something that I like spending my time on, given the volatility in the political sphere and everything. This is just a much preferable place to be, a much preferable headspace to be in, where it feels like you're actually getting something done.
It's why I signed up. Like that when Kurt came and asked if I wanted to do Chirp, I was so burnt out. And we're still doing, hashtag coffee 3 days a week, just mostly politics, whatever. But I'm just like, my outrage is empty. Like I don't have anything left to be shocked or to be angry or whatever. And, Kurt comes along and says, hey, we're going to build a whole new, cryptocurrency enabled, social media space. Will you come and help develop the community and the culture so that it turns into something really, really good? And I'm like, well, I will try. And so far, it just has been, right? And there's some politics on there. People can say whatever the hell they want on there, and they should. But it's more like the hashtag gratitudes channel is the biggest channel on there right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like the most active channel is just people showing up every single morning and starting their day on Chirp, like taking an intentional grab of the reins of their social media experience. Anybody that's seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix will understand that's something that everyone should be doing. And so they're just deciding, okay, well, I'm going to go to Chirp first. It's the first app that they open. They go to hashtag gratitudes. They say one thing they're grateful for. And that's that, they take that as a win. Right. And it's been a beautiful thing to watch. And it's fun.
How many, I'm sorry to ask this because I know
it's okay.
I'm dragging you into the headspace, but how many questions do you think are going to be asked on tonight's, I'm sorry, is it tomorrow night? Oh God, tomorrow night's debate. How long do you think they're going to spend on the subject of cryptocurrency?
0. Yeah, no, and neither one of them know anything about it.
They don't. And like, we're going through this nonsense of the election integrity and everything, and you could theoretically come up with a system that you can actually have secure and transparent elections.
Not theoretical. Fred Krueger said this. I've been saying it for 3 years. The second that I understood the ledger behind Bitcoin, it was obvious to me that we should be voting on the blockchain because it's public-private. You can vote online. Literally, no one can hack it, and you can track your vote. Not only that, but literally everybody else could too. Right, the results of that election would be automatically tabulated and open for everyone to see in real time. There's no reason not to do that, except for the people that are really, really, vested in maintaining control. Blockchain voting has to become a thing. It's only a matter of time.
Man, it makes me so mad seeing the potential of this technology, seeing how we're just dropping the ball. Corey, I've got just a couple of questions here from my chat, and we'll be good to go from there. William Carlton, thank you so much for being here, asking some questions and engaging. He's got a good one here, which I'm not going to give you the best answer, but hopefully Corey can chime in.
He says, anyway.
Corey or Seth, if you can remark insightfully about the long or even medium-term implications for crypto that stem from quantum computing, I will stay tuned for as long as it takes to get there. So, quantum.
Okay.
So, it's only safe and secure, as we were just talking about with an election, as long as you don't have some sort of supercomputer that can crack the hashing algorithms that keep crypto blockchain secure. From what I understand, crypto in general, like if you break crypto with quantum computing, you're also going to break the centralized financial institution. Way
easier.
So it's almost like I'm not worried about it because the day that happens, everything changes.
So here's the interesting thing about that. I love this question personally because when you realize that Bitcoin itself, which is like the proof of mathematical work, proof of computational work, right? So how the reason why quantum computers are scary for that is that it's impossible to break that because all of the computational power that's operating Bitcoin, and it's using the energy of Sweden. It's a very, 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 very distributed, decentralized, massive amount of computing, right? I saw a stat that it would take 10,000 years for the NSA's biggest computers to break one block, and so that's a 10-minute segment of Bitcoin, right? And so they would have to break that, and then they would have to like rewrite themselves. Like, I'm going to write myself 10 million Bitcoin or something like that, right? Nefarious. And then they would have to figure out how to get that written into all the other computers in the network so that it could actually be validated. And they could do it. It would just take them a really, really long time. And then the next 10-minute block starts, right? With quantum computing, they might be able to do it instantly. And the thing is, it doesn't help them, right? If you manage to affect that and say give yourself 1 million Bitcoin or whatever, right? That incursion would be automatically recognized because everyone else has a copy of the ledger up to the last 10 minutes, and they all agree, right? Like, there's 10,000 computers out there that are running Bitcoin. Every single one of them has a ledger that is identical. And every 10 minutes is when active transactions are being finished. And then they lock that block off and finalize it. And that goes out to all of the it gets distributed out to everybody in there. So even if you can hack it, it would be able to be automatically caught, basically. And then they could come up with a fix for it. You could only ever do it once from any particular IP. It's still, it's interesting because you could crack that instantaneously. Any bank is, I think, 1,000 times more vulnerable to that kind of attack than Bitcoin. But then on top of that, you have, Proton as sort of my favorite example right now, but really any of these blockchains, they're all being run by proof of stake, which basically means you have between 21 and maybe 50 block producers, companies that are running giant servers that are effectively keeping the ledger, right? And they've got their own security on this thing, and they're basically all running in tandem. And so you'd have to hack all of those companies simultaneously and then expect them to do nothing about it, right? So even if you could crack them, and you probably could, and send yourself 1 million Proton, well, they have a copy of the ledger from 5 seconds ago, right? And these instead of 10-minute block times, they're literally in the seconds. So they could just rinse, repeat back to 5 minutes ago, and then you still have nothing, right? So these distributed technologies have their own layer of human security in them that quantum computing just by itself isn't really going to be able to affect. And right off the bat, the cryptocurrency blockchain space is going to be, again, I think at least, and I'm not being hyperbolic, 1,000 times more secure than any current banking situation on Earth.
Yeah, I think I agree too.
Because again, like, quantum computing is so new. I could be completely wrong there. That's just my personal assessment of it from what little information I have.
Yeah, and I also think by the point that quantum computing happens, we're closer to the singularity occurring at that point in time. Maybe. I would also really recommend, William, going and checking out Lex Friedman's interview with Vitalik Buterin. They broached this subject a little bit, and if anyone should be concerned about this issue, it should be Vitalik. And he essentially says similar things to what Corey just said, but he also mentioned that there, like the SHA hashing algorithm that they currently use, like there are other proofs of work that are more resilient to the type of quantum computing, because there's different types of quantum computing that are down the road in the pipeline. Just in general, that was a really good listen for me to better understand Ethereum. That was when it kind of clicked, and that's where I heard about the crypto dragons phenomenon too. And it's a very good interview. It's really amazing to see this guy's brain tick. I can't believe he's younger than I am.
That dude's a human. He's an alien in a human suit. Like, I'm almost certain of it. He's a weirdo.
Yeah,
but in the best way.
Bob Benson is also in the chat. Thank you so much for joining along. This has been just an amazing episode all in general. He says Chirp defeats the AI algorithm nightmare that Facebook and others live by. Did you say that you have watched The Social Dilemma, Corey?
Oh, yes.
That was really eye-opening, and you were the first person that I was thinking of when I was watching that. I was like, you have to be watching this. As the people who are developing the next social media 2.0, they have to have these things in mind and figure out, like, how do we avoid this from happening? Because it is the thing that is destroying the world right now.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy.
It gets me uncomfortable every time I think about it. Ira asks, is there a Chirp iOS app yet?
No. Android and iOS are both in the pipeline, and should be out soon. Our focus right now is on demoing the like rolling out the Telos crypto dealio, basically turning the Telos channel on Chirp into the equivalent of a dust mine for people that are familiar with that. It's basically every action that you do is going to earn a little bit of Telos. So we're the devs are focusing on that right now, and then we're going to finish mobile up, which I think is actually almost done. We're just in testing phases of it. But when this Telos thing came up, like we're starting to see the bigger picture of what's possible when we become the central node for attention for any cryptocurrency project that is smart enough to get in on it. So we wanted to focus on making sure we could test that first. But they're coming soon. Believe me, when they come out, I will start yelling from the rooftops that they're out and they'll be available.
Awesome. Exciting stuff. All right, Corey, our half-hour-long podcast quickly doubled. I can't thank you enough for coming on to the Daily Dividends. I know this is Chirpcast too. It's, we do better by joining together in communities. Make sure that you are following along with Corey. Corey, do you have any plugs that you want to leave before we go?
Yeah, go to www.chirp.la and sign up and check out the hashtag Daily Dividends channel. You can follow that. You can follow hashtag Chirpcast on there as well. And I would really highly, for your life, recommend joining hashtag Gratitudes, following that channel, and every morning start at Chirp instead of everywhere else. Don't run on automatic on social media. Be intentional. And having that little bite of gratitude in your life will have a measurable effect on it.
Yeah, I speak for both of us, I think, when it feels cool to be part of a growing community, and there is a lot of growth to happen within these spaces, so definitely give this a check out. All right, Corey, do we need like a sign-off phrase for any time that we might be doing an interview together? Like something like, I don't know, if it's hashtag coffee. Well, it's not coffee right now, but, can you think of anything?
Right now, but we should come up with something for the next one for sure.
All right, we won't make the same mistake. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. That's going to do it for today. Right. You guys have a wonderful night.
Cheers.